Welcome students. Welcome to the lecture number 2 of chapter 1, that is getting started with Python. Okay. In the previous lecture we are discussing about the features of Python, and we have discussed about two features. The first one is the cross-platform language and the other one is open source and freely available. Okay. So these are basically the two features which we have discussed in the previous class. Now today we are going to discuss some more features of this Python. First one is the interpreted language. Okay. So let me give you some small introduction about this feature, that Python use interpreter. Okay. Yes. So it is written that Python use interpreter as a language translator, right? So Python use basically a interpreter, and that interpreter is nothing else but a language translator. So it executes the code line by line at a time, due to which it is easy to debug language. Okay. So first of all, it is important for you to know that what is basically a language translator. Okay. So first let me explain you about the language translator. Suppose you know the programming language. Okay, suppose you know the Python programming language, and with the help of that programming language you have written a code. Okay, so you have written a code in Python language, right? But you know that your computer will understand only a particular language. That language is called as a machine language. Okay, the computer will understand the language of 0 and 1 only. That is basically the machine language. So actually you have written the program in the Python language and you want to run that program in computer. Okay, but a problem is that computer understand only the 0 and 1 language. It can't process any code which is written in any other language. So obviously there comes a language translator. Okay, there comes a language translator in this process. And what is the function of this language translator? This function takes the source code which is written in the programming language, converts that source code in the language which is understandable by the machine. Okay, so this is basically the purpose of language translator. As I already told you that Python is basically the third generation of language. Okay, in this third generation of language there are two language translators used. The first language translator is basically just wait. So the first language translator is basically compiler. Okay, so this compiler is basically the language translator which basically converts the code which is written in third generation language programming into the machine code. And there is one more language translator also named as interpreter. Okay, the second one is the interpreter. So in third generation of language there are many programming languages are under the third generation of language. Okay, so as I told you that there are many languages under the third generation of language. Okay, so some languages basically used compiler, some languages used interpreter as a language translator for them, right? And there are some languages which basically use the combination of both these languages, both this translator also. Now what is the basic difference between these two language translator? The reason is that basically the compiler language translator, it will go through the source code once or twice, and then if there is no error in the source code, then it will convert the entire source code in a machine coded file. Okay, What compiler will do, suppose this is your source code file in which you have written program in, suppose in any language. Okay, let us take a third generation language, that is C language. We are taking the example of C language, okay, or let's take the example of C++. So what you have done, you know about the C++ language and you have written the source code in the C++ language. Once you have over with your code, and when you start executing it, what will happen? This code first comes to the compiler. The compiler will check the entire code once or twice, that whether there is any syntax error or any mistake in the code or not. If there is no syntactical error or any syntax error in the code, then the compiler will create an machine coded file for you. Okay, in this basically all your code is converted into the form of 0 and 1, right? Okay, so this is basically the purpose of the compiler. It checks your entire code once or twice, and if there is no error, then it will automatically convert your code in the 0-1 format. What is the functionality of this interpreter? Suppose if you have written any code supported by any of the third generation language, suppose we have used Python, okay, because we are working on the Python also. So we are taking the example of Python. So suppose in Python language you have written some code, right? You have written some code in the Python language. What happens once your code is ready? Then, as I told you that Python is an interpreted language, it means that Python basically use interpreter as a language translator for it. So what this interpreter will do, it will fetch the first line. Okay, it will just fetch the first line, check whether the line is correct or not, and if the line is correct, then it will convert it and execute it. Okay, then it fetch the second line, check whether the line is correct or not. If the line is correct, then it converts it into 0-1 form and execute it. So it means this interpreter, in spite of converting the entire program into machine code, this will do the work in line by line order. So how this interpreter will work? This interpreter will work in the line by line order. Okay, so it doesn't convert the entire code into machine code. What it will do? It will simply take the first line, check that line and convert it into machine code. Then it takes the second line, checks the line, convert it into machine code, and then process it. Okay. So that's why interpret the languages. The interpreter is basically good for debugging purpose. Now, what is this debugging means? Debugging means, if we talk about this debugging means to find out the error. Okay, to find out the error. Now, how interpreter is good for debugging? Suppose we have written a particular code, okay, and we are not getting the right answer from that code, okay, and suppose there is no syntax error in the code. The code is perfectly all right. There is no syntactical error in the code, but when you run that code, you are not getting the desired output. So obviously, how can you find out the error, that in which line your code goes wrong? So in this case, you have to test each and every line individually, that okay, when the first line execute, this will be the answer. When the second line execute, this will be the answer. Third line execute, this will be the answer. Suppose, let me take you an example. You are solving a question in mathematics. Okay, you started the question. Suppose you have done 10 statements for processing that question, but at the end you are getting the result which is not right. Okay, so you know that okay, this question, the answer of this question is not correct. So where I have gone wrong? In that case, what you will do? You will check each and every line one by one. Na? That okay, this line means in this line this variable gets this value, in this line this value is obtained, in this line this value is obtained. So you are basically testing each and every line. Right? So what you are doing debugging by testing each and every line. You want to find out that line in which the error arise in your question. So debugging means checking, finding the error in your code. And why interpreter is good for debugging? Because interpreter basically test and execute the code line by line only. So if there is an error in any point of line, then you can immediately get the answer that okay, from this line we are getting this kind of answer which is wrong. So obviously there must be some error in that line also. Okay. So as I told you that Python use interpreter. Interpreter means a language translator. So it executes the code line by line, because I told you that interpreter executes the code line by line order, due to which it is easy to debug language. Okay, so basically it is what is the benefit for using it? Because debugging is easy in this kind of languages. Okay, now let's move to the next point, that is large standard library. Okay, so what is basically this large standard library? It means that suppose in your school there is a library, okay, and suppose there are many books related to all the subjects of yours. Suppose you are finding difficulty in a particular topic of suppose physics. Okay, so you move to the library, and over there you found that there are many books of physics written by different authors. So what you can do, you can use all those books to go through that particular chapter, to go through that particular topic. So there are variety of options available for you. Similarly, in Python there is ample of library, but the Python has lots of files present in it. And what are the benefit of those files? These files contain some predefined options. So what I can do, whenever I write a program, I can use that predefined option which is already present in Python directly in my code. Right? Let me explain you once again about this point. Now, suppose you want to find the square root of 16, right? So obviously you have learned in mathematics that there is a long procedure for finding the square root of 16, but well, 16 is very easy. But suppose if I told you to find the square root of 17, if I told you to find the square root of 2, 1, 2, so obviously it will be a very difficult task for you. Okay, but you know, in Python there is a predefined function for it, and that is basically sqrt. So if you want to find the square root of any number, suppose I want to find the square root of 17, so no problem at all. What I will write, x is equal to, I have to write math. Math is basically a module present in the Python. Okay, so math dot, then I put dot, and then I will write sqrt. Okay, and within the bracket I have to specify the number whose square root I want to find. Suppose if I want to find the square root of 17, then what will I do? I will simply write 17 in it. So you know that we don't have to worry about finding the square root of the number. In Python, the square root procedure is already predefined. So we don't have to worry, we have to simply use this option, okay, that is sqrt, which is already present in the math module of Python. Okay, we will discuss about it later on also, but just I have used it just to give a small indication you that what is the meaning of the small libraries. So obviously this is just a one function, one option which is present in the math module. There are ample of modules available in Python, and every module have many functions present in it. Okay, so standard library means Python has a large standard library which provides variety of predefined functionality. Okay, so as I told you that Python has a large standard libraries which provides a variety of predefined functionality to the programmer. So programmer need not to worry about writing the typical codes. Some basically the Python library already contain many features, many options. So what he has to do, he has to simply use those options in his code. That's it. As I told you that sqrt is already predefined in Python. We don't have to follow the procedure. We have to just use that option in my program to find the square root of anything, right? So these are the two more features of the Python. Now let's move to the next category, that is easy to use. Why Python is called easy to use? Because Python language has a very simple syntax rules. Okay, Python language has a very simple syntax rule, and as it is a very high level language and thus very programmer friendly. So whenever you started writing the Python code, you found that the Python is has very simple syntax. Okay, let me explain you about this concept, that why Python is having a very simple syntax. Okay, suppose let me do one thing. I open a notepad for it. Okay, suppose we have a problem that my variable a is 9 and another variable b is 7. So I have to write a code through which the a variable gets the value 7 and b variable gets the value 9, right? So I have to do this question with me. So let us explain you about this question. So as we have seen that a variable has value that is equal to 9, okay, and the b variable has value which is equal to 7, right? So what we have to do, we want that the variable a contains the value 9, okay, and this b contains the value 7. So what we want to do, we want to interchange their values, that we want that 7 gets stored in a and 9 gets stored in b. Okay, so we have to basically interchange their value. But suppose if I written like this, that a is equal to b, suppose if I written this statement that a is equal to b, then what will happen? The value of b, that is 7, that value gets stored in a. So it means from a 9 is replaced and we get 7 in a. So the problem over here is that the value which is present in a is removed and we are getting the new value, that is 7. So in this way we can't interchange their value now, because now you can see that b also has 7 and a also has 7 with us. So this will not work perfectly. So what we will do in this case, let me again explain you this example, that how we can do this. Okay, so let me use some other color also. So now over here we have 9 with us and in this b we have 7 with us. Okay, so what we will take another variable. Let's say suppose c, we have taken another variable. Okay, and what I will do, first I will preserve the value of a in c. How? If I write the code like c is equal to a, then what will happen? The value of a, which is 9, is transferred into c and the c will get the value as 9. So what I have done, I have first preserved the value of a in some other place. Okay, after this code I will write the next line that a is equal to b. Okay, so when I write like this line, what will happen? The value of b gets stored in a, right? So what a will get? The a will get the value, that is 9 is removed from it, and the a function and the a variable get the value 7. Okay, but no need to worry, because the value of a is already preserved in c. Then we will write b is equal to c. So when we write this statement, it means the value of c gets stored in b. So what is present in c? 9. So value of 9 gets stored in b. Okay, so what will happen? the 7 value get removed from B, and the B variable get the next value, the value that is basically 9. Okay, so now you can see that previously A has 9 and B has 7, but after these execution of these statements, what will happen? The value of A becomes 7 and the value of B becomes 9, right? So this is basically a simple procedure for interchanging the values between two variables. But you have seen that we have applied a lot of logic in this, right? But suppose if we are working in Python, then what is the benefit for us if we are doing this code in Python? Okay, so let me explain you. Suppose if I am writing the code in Python language, okay, so we don't have to go through all these kind of codes. What is the if you are doing this interchange procedure in Python, then we have to simply write that A comma B is equal to B comma A. That's it. So this statement will automatically change the value of A and B. So in this case, the value or the variable A will get the value of B, okay, and the value of A is stored in B. So in this way, the value of A is B and is interchanged. So we don't have to run this 3 lines. We have done this code in just a single line. That's it. So in this way, the A comma B is equal to B comma A means the value of A and B are interchanged. So you can see that in Python we have to just write a single line for it. But in any other languages, we have to basically follow this entire procedure. Okay, and also we have to take an additional variable for it. Okay, so that's why we call it as Python is easy to use, because it has a very simple syntax for performing very complicated tasks also. Now the last feature is that variety of applications. You know that Python is a very fast emerging language this time, because Python is used in many variety of applications. So Python is used in many diverse fields. As Python is used in many fields, okay, so and what are those fields? Like web application we use Python. Suppose we make websites, okay, and web applications means the application which runs on the website. Suppose you know that you make payment, online payment through website, okay, so online payment is basically a application which is created for the website, and for developing those kinds of application a language must be used. So Python can also be used for developing the web application. Python is used in game development. Python is used in database applications also. You heard about a database application in your, I think, 9th or 10th, you have done MS Access. So MS Access is basically a RDBMS software, okay. So Python is basically can also be used in many of the RDBMS softwares also. It is also used for making any GUI programs, system administration applications, etc. So Python is why CBSE has included Python in your syllabus, because Python has a very bright future, and Python is basically used in multiple fields, variety of fields, okay. That's why they have included Python in your course curriculum. So that's all features we have to discuss. So I hope you understand about all the features which we have discussed in this lecture. So that's all for today's lecture. Thank you very much and have a nice day.